As a producer, how many times have you been told you have a story to share? Go share it, but are left wondering exactly what that story is, exactly how to go about sharing it, and if it's even worth your time? Do we have an answer for you?
Elevate Ag is an online course and community where farmers, ranchers, and other producers can come together to access the tools and information they need to craft, share, and monetize their own personal ag story.
Our online course is unlike any out there. Sharing about agriculture has its unique challenges and opportunities, and until now, no course was addressing them. Elevate Ag was created by us, a rancher and a dairy farmer, specifically for you, our agriculture community.
Save time, frustration, and uncertainty by joining our online course and community. With the tools in this course, you're able to grow your business and monetize. To learn more about our course, visit our website, elevateyouragstory.com. Welcome to Elevate the Podcast, a storytelling and business podcast where we highlight and mastermind entrepreneurs in the agricultural, Western, and rural space.
We're your hosts, Natalie Kabore
and Tara Natalie.
And today we're bringing you one of our business shots, a quick yet powerful dive into a short topic that will help you as an entrepreneur drive your business forward.
Created by agriculture for agriculture, Elevate opens doors for the rural, Western, and agricultural entrepreneurs so they can elevate themselves, their businesses, and the lifestyle we all love.
Change. What a polarizing word. For some, it evokes excitement and progression and helps breathe fresh life into stagnant lungs, and others it creates sheer and utter panic. But no matter how you feel about our good friend change, it's inevitable, and as we grow as individuals, both personally and professionally, we will encounter moments and periods that require immense change. Today, Tara and I want to deep dive the topic of what it looks like to navigate this change, specifically what it can feel like to let go of good in order to create space for great.
Yeah, so when we brainstormed this episode, it felt really right to share about this right now, given the current season that we're in. I feel like we're both going through a lot of change with our personal businesses as well as Elevate Ag. And even though we both feel, I think, really good about where we're headed, it's still really hard. It's hard to let go of things. And one of the things we actually talked about during the mastermind that we were at last week was letting go of things that no longer are serving you to make space and room for you to grow in the direction you want to. And in addition to that, something else I kind of want us to talk about is the direction that you also see a need and are being drawn to. And so that was kind of my thoughts behind this episode and wanting to share is just where we're currently at in our current state.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into the saying no to good in order to make space for great, because I think that's a really good concept. Looking at it, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But then when you're placed in the middle of it, you're like, this is extremely hard and challenging. And I remember I actually just texted you a couple of days ago and I was like, it is so hard saying no because we're getting these opportunities to do these things, but we can't do everything, right? So you have to start weighing your no's versus your yeses. And then, which again, taking a step back, that seems so simple, but when you're placed in those positions, sometimes it's hard to even tell sometimes what's good and great. And even when you can tell the good versus the great, you're like, oh, this is so good. But I know we could be spending our time and we should be spending our time doing elsewhere. So I don't know, maybe talk about I think we should just kind of dive into, I guess, maybe how we're changing, share more about personal changes we're making in order to come together and I guess just more about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think we should go back kind of to where we're at with change. And so a big piece of it for me and a big part I focused on during that mastermind in Nashville was the fact that I just feel spread very thin. I have worked really hard to finally get brand deals, speaking engagements, all sorts of different things. And it's just at a point that's kind of overwhelming and I need to start saying no to things. And I have started saying no to things. And similar to what you said, it's just really hard. It's really hard to say no. But one of the things that we both want to do is we want to make more room for Elevate Ag. We both are just extremely passionate about moving forward with all things like our multiple projects within Elevate Ag. And that means saying no and letting go of some of what was previously our individual things, our individual businesses and going in together on Elevate Ag. And it's exciting. It's just hard.
So to speak to that, I think what's helping us, and maybe for everyone listening, you're like, yeah, we get it. It's we get the concept, we get that it's hard, but what can we do about it? I think revisiting, I don't know if you need me a list or if it's a journal or what it is, but really staying, I remember Tara at our mastermind where you were at, your key word was I want focus out of this. And I feel like that's something that helps navigate this one, helps you navigate change, and two, helps you say no to the good in order to make space for the great, is really staying focused. And I think you and I are doing a good job right now to continually remind ourselves, like, what are we focused on? What are we building towards? Like, we have loved parts of our personal brand. I can't even speak into the universe yet. Some of the things I have to let go. Like, it's so hard for me to let go of some of the things I've built, which I think we should dive into next is, I don't know, the feelings around that and how that's okay. Like, just because you start something doesn't mean you have to stick with it. And just because you stop something doesn't mean you didn't love it. It didn't serve you. But I think we've been able to, and what's helping us move forward into this space of what we consider great is staying focused on that goal, like focused where we're going.
Yeah, you said so many things. I'm going to try to like remember all the things I wanted to like say after those points. But I do think picking a word, like picking that word focus, made me like it. Yes, I wanted to focus, but it was very helpful in being like, okay, how do I do that? How do I get more focus? And so almost picking a word of what you're looking for, what you want to feel, what you want to have moving forward. And I wanted more focus. And then it did make it easier. Okay, so now how do I get there? How do I get more focus? And it's letting go of things. The other point you made is that it's okay to let go of things you've grown and built and it changes. In one of our previous episodes, we talked about how sharing socially is changing constantly. Like there wasn't TikTok, there wasn't whatever, there wasn't Instagram stories. And so a natural part of, sharing online, whether that be, selling your business, selling your products online, is that change is inevitable there. And so it's okay to be like, okay, that was serving me for that goal of that product or what that piece of my business. And now I'm changing and growing and evolving in a different direction.
Yeah. And building off, I know we've mentioned this before, at least we mention it like in Elevate Ag, the course, but there is like a societal conception that it's like frowned upon to like be the person that always starts new things. I don't know if it's been ingrained to us from past generations. Like once you start something, you finish it and you stick it out, right? But I think that there's beauty in testing things that serve you and feel right. And going back to what I said earlier, just because you have to let go of something doesn't mean it wasn't important or special to you. I think, at least for me personally, I think that there's a little bit of, and I would say argue maybe for society too, but there's a little bit of like, if it's right, it's going to feel good and easy. And that's not always true. Like, I think in our heart, we know releasing some of the things that we've been like working on personally is the right thing to do to move us forward towards our vision. But that doesn't feel good. And those two, just because they like butt heads against each other, like the concept of I know it's right and it doesn't feel good, that doesn't mean we're on the wrong track. The right decision isn't always going to feel good.
Yeah, two things about that. I recently underwent changing my name on Instagram, and I loved the name New Mexico Milkmaid. It served me so well. I loved that it was a part of my brand, a part of who I was, but it just was no longer serving me in the direction I was headed. And so I was sad to like let it go, let that piece go, but I knew it was the right decision. And it just became obvious that that was the direction I needed to go with my online page. So even though I was sad to let it go, I knew it was the right decision. It doesn't mean like I'm like, don't ever want to be called New Mexico Milkmaid again. It just moving forward, I wanted to use my name. And I think when you also think about it from a business standpoint, it's also about serving like your community, serving your customers. And so if they're asking something of you or, you think you could add a piece to your business that would better serve them, I think that constant change and evolving is such a crucial part of continuing. Like I think the businesses that get stuck in like, this is the way we've always done it, this is the way it's always worked, get really stuck. And the ones that are like, okay, yeah, I'm hearing this from my customers and I think I could do that. I think I want to do that, are constantly evolving.
Absolutely. I always say if you're listening to your audience, they'll tell you exactly what they want from you. And as good social sharers or good business owners, we should absolutely be listening to our customer, right? It always comes back to like the customer. That's what builds, whether we're sharing online, we just have a brand, like our community is what builds us. And if we actually have a product we're selling. But you said something earlier about being able to serve, like you felt spread thin and you can't, it's like, I always call it, when I'm at Rural Rooted, I always call it like lateral growth versus vertical. And when we are so spread thin vertically, it's just really hard to show up and serve really, really well in a ton of places. And I had listened to this podcast before, and I feel like I promise this circles back around. But it had talked about this analogy of like a hanging fruit tree. And when the branches get too heavy, when we look at how we take care of plants, we always trim back, right? Like when you trim back, it actually creates the space to grow and flourish. And that analogy has always stuck with me. And that's what that podcast was talking about with the fruit tree and like the low hanging limbs. Like when you pick that fruit, everything like releases up and then there's room for more growth again. And I've always brought that back into business for me? Like, am I getting too heavy? Do I have too many offerings? Like, am I not actually showing up and serving really, really well in a few spots? Am I getting too spread thin and trying to show up in all the different ways? And I think sometimes that happens in business. Like, we're just like, we keep going. We're like, yes, 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 crank it out, go, go, go. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh shoot, maybe I got distracted from my original vision or mission. Or maybe like currently you and I are right now, we didn't get sidetracked, but we're like moving towards a new vision. Cutting back growth is not a bad thing. Pruning actually leads to more room for flourishment.
I love that analogy for agriculture. That's beautiful. Talking about Elevate Ag and where we're at too is going back to like listening to your community. That is one of the reasons like I think Elevate has new projects, has changed kind of like what our offerings are, is because we keep hearing these needs. And then we look at those needs, what we're getting asked by our community, and then saying, is this the direction we want to go? And sometimes that's no. And sometimes that's like, yes, absolutely yes. And we're being drawn then in a different direction to make sure that we're serving the people that are showing up for us. For all of you, like listening to the podcast and, taking the e-course, is we want to make sure that we are serving in the best way possible, that you're getting the most value out of no matter what we're offering, that you can really like have big takeaways. And so I think with that comes, listening, and then from listening comes change.
So the other thing I want to focus on this too, because I know at least for me, it plays a big role in like saying no to the good in order to create space for the great, or moving towards a new vision and stepping away from, older visions, is the uncertainty of it. And that is, I think, really scary. And I would say it's 100% true for me. And I would argue that like that's probably a common emotion that plays a role in people being like, well, I don't want to say no to the things that are like certain for me right now and have been good and like working, in order to take the risk and chance for what I want to go after. But there's a lot of uncertainty around how that will play out. And I know that's where you and I are right now. And one of the things that was like scary for me was like, oh, wow, I've worked really, really hard to build a lot of these personal things and these things that I have built and created, and they're working and they feel good. But I know moving forward, I want to work towards what we have together, but that's not guaranteed. And I think that's a roadblock or a place a lot of people get hung up on.
I completely agree. I think that one of the things for me right now is I have been starting to say no to like brand partnerships. It ultimately was never necessarily what I wanted to do or love to do. And I love to do speaking. And at some point you cannot do it all. And so but at the same time, it is a fear of like, well, what if I don't get another speaking engagement? Like, what if no one asks me to speak again? But here I have this brand who is asking me to work with them, and kind of just taking that leap of faith that like, I ultimately want to be speaking, and that's what I love doing, what I love spending my time doing. So again, like saying no to something to make room, even though it's uncertain, and even though there's that fear behind it, that I could like never book another speaking engagement again, and just going kind of all in, as you always say, like in blind faith, a little bit of just knowing this is the right path for me and this is ultimately what I want to be doing.
Okay, so to wrap this up, I think the key things that are important for everyone listening is almost at the beginning, and I would say that we probably both felt this, you just sense something is off a little bit. Like it doesn't feel right. We like to say that alignment, like we use alignment a lot, whether you're in Elevate Ag or Rural Rooted, but you can sense something is different, is meant for you. Like, like when it rains and the air is a little bit different, I feel like that's how I feel about some things with business. Like I'm just like, this has been working, but something is just off a little bit for me. And I think that's like the first thing to recognize, is just to kind of like sit in that space of like, okay, I don't have to go into drastic change. I don't have to stop anything I'm doing, but like recognize that maybe change is coming for you. And then I think I heard Jordan Lee Dooley, I don't know if anyone listening to us listens to her, but she had this analogy of what can I let go and what do I want to grow? And I feel like that really, I don't know, I feel like that's the other key takeaway for us in this like navigating change. And when we were talking about really being focused, when she said that, I was like, oh, wow, that's so good. Like, what can I let go of and what do I want to grow? So focusing on those two things, sensing when you want to make a change, and then evaluating, okay, I'm sensing change is coming. What can I let go of and what do I want to grow?
I think for me, that is like my biggest takeaway for anyone listening is the making room. You have to let go of things to grow. There is literally only so many hours in the day. And as much as we want to tell ourselves we can do it all, there's that letting go and making room.
Okay, so for everyone that is maybe where we are, which is navigating a little bit of change and learning to let go of the good in order to make space for the great, just stay steadfast in that you have led yourself and your business to where you are now, and the decisions you will make forward to navigate this change, you will lead yourself in the right direction again.
Thanks so much for listening to the show this week. If you love these quick business shots with Natalie and I, we would appreciate it if you would screenshot and share today's episode to your social pages and/or subscribe and leave us a review.
And if this is your first episode, be sure to scroll back and listen to all of our prior episodes. If you're a rural, Western, or ag entrepreneur, you can find more about all of our different offerings at our website, elevateyouragstory.com. And as always, you can find us on our personal Instagram pages at Natalie Kavorik and at Tara Vanderdusen.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.